Welcome to Gen 2 Stories. Before we dive into today's powerful story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep the stories coming. Now let's begin. Dirty brown water flew into the air and soaked Kemi from head to toe. Her old broom dropped from her hand. She stood frozen, her small frame dripping with mud, her heart pounding in her chest. People walking by paused for a moment, their eyes wide. But just as quickly, they turned away. No one came to help. No one said a word. Inside the shiny black Jeep that caused the splash, a loud laugh echoed. A woman with red lipstick, long false lashes, and giant sunglasses leaned out of the window. "Next time, cleaner girl, stand far from the road," she shouted before speeding into the gates of Harmony Preparatory School. The woman was Madame Alana, one of the richest women in the community. Her businesses stretched from boutiques to salons. People feared her, some envied her, but very few liked her. Kemi blinked, trying to stay strong. The water had soaked her dress, made her slippers squish with every step. Her hands shook as she reached down to pick up her broom. Still, she didn't cry. She didn't speak. She wiped her face with the edge of her scarf and bent down to sweep again. It was just another Lagos morning. But something important had just begun. Earlier that morning, before the sun rose, Kemi had already left her home. Her house was a one-room building at the back of a compound with 5 other families. The roof leaked when it rained. The floor was made of cement, and the bed she shared with her mum and younger brother had springs poking through the foam. But Kemi was used to it. She had grown up around struggle. What she wasn't used to was cruelty. She carried her small bag, broom, and a packet of groundnut and walked the 25 minutes to the school gate. It was still dark and only a few cars passed by. As she walked, she looked at the early market women setting up. She waved at Auntie Ronke, who sold fried yam and fish. She always smiled at Kemi and sometimes gave her leftovers when she could. "Early again, my child?" Auntie Ronke asked. "Yes, ma," Kemi said. "I want to finish before the pupils come." "You have a good heart. One day, it will pay off." Kemi smiled shyly and continued walking. She arrived at the school gate just as the sun began to rise. The light painted the sky with soft pink and orange. She liked that part of the day, the quiet before the traffic and the shouting and the noise. She pulled out her old broom and started sweeping. She worked slowly but carefully, making sure no leaf or paper was left on the sidewalk. She liked it neat. It was her way of showing respect, even when no one respected her. As she worked, she hummed a song her mother always sang. "Clean hands, strong heart, that's what makes you shine." Kemi believed it. She believed that if she worked hard and stayed kind, her life would get better one day. But just as she was finishing the last part of the gutter, she heard the sound. Vroom! A car. Fast, heavy, coming straight through the puddle left by last night's rain. She didn't even have time to step back before the tires rolled through the water. Splash! She felt the cold hit her skin. Her arms, her legs, her chest, her dress clung to her. Her feet felt like ice. Her face burned with embarrassment. Inside the Jeep, Madame Olana didn't even stop. Her laughter was loud and sharp, like a slap. People looked. A bus conductor hissed under his breath. A woman selling oranges shook her head. A student at the gate whispered to her friend, but still, no one helped. Except one man. Across the road, seated quietly by a wooden table filled with oranges, sat an elderly man with a white beard and faded shirt. He wore round glasses and chewed slowly on a toothpick. His name was Uncle Tayo, though most people just called him Baba Oranges. He had been selling oranges on that same spot for years. People passed him without really seeing him, but Uncle Tayo saw everything. He wiped his glasses slowly, looked at Kemi, and whispered to himself, "Money can buy a car, but it can't buy manners." Kemi bent down, picked up her broom, and quietly continued sweeping. Not because she wasn't hurt, but because she didn't know what else to do. From behind the school fence, another pair of eyes had seen it all. Muna, Madame Olana's only child, was sitting under a mango tree, reading a book and waiting for the morning assembly. She had seen her mother's car, she had seen the splash, and she had seen the look on Kemi's face. That night, after dinner, Muna sat on the edge of her bed, holding her storybook but not reading it. "Mummy, why did you splash that girl today?" Olana was painting her nails in the living room. "What girl?" "The cleaner girl. The one at the school gate." "Oh, her. She was standing too close to the road. That's her problem." She looked really sad. Olana rolled her eyes. "Muna, poor people are always sad. If they want to be happy, they should work harder." But Muna knew that Kemi was already working harder than most. She didn't sleep well that night, and far down the road, under the yellow light of the street lamp, Uncle Tayo opened a small brown notebook and wrote, "A girl was covered in mud today, but the dirtiest thing wasn't her clothes. It was the pride in the woman's heart." He looked up at the stars. Every eye on the street is not blind. That night, Muna tossed and turned in bed. She had tried to focus on her book, on the cartoons playing softly from the television, on her soft pink bed sheets. But the sound kept playing in her head. Splash! The sound of her mother's car splashing mud onto the cleaner girl. She sat up, hugging her teddy bear. "Why did she laugh?" Muna whispered to herself. "Why was it funny?" Downstairs, Olana was on the phone, still laughing with a friend. "You should have seen her face," she said, like she was about to cry. "But it's not my fault she was standing too close to the road." Muna closed her door. She didn't want to hear any more. Early the next morning, Muna dressed faster than usual. She packed her lunch, brushed her teeth, and wore her school uniform neatly. She told the driver to drop her off early. When she arrived at the school gate, Kemi was already there. She was sweeping again, this time wearing a clean but faded yellow blouse and skirt. Her head was down, her back bent with effort. Muna stood by the gate and watched for a moment. No one else noticed her. Teachers were walking in, drivers were honking, some students were laughing about weekend plans. Muna walked slowly to where Kemi stood. "Hello," she said softly. Kemi looked up quickly. "Good morning, small madam." Muna shook her head. "No, just Muna. What's your name?" "Kemi." They stood in silence for a few seconds. "I saw what happened yesterday," Muna said. "I'm sorry for what my mummy did." Kemi blinked. "You saw?" Muna nodded. "She shouldn't have laughed. That was wrong." Kemi looked down. "It's okay. The mud is gone." But it wasn't. The stain was still on the wall near the gate. The mark on her heart was still fresh. The way everyone ignored her had settled deep into her chest. Still, she smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she had taught herself to keep going. "Thank you," Kemi said quietly. That day, Muna sat in class thinking more about Kemi than her maths lesson. At break time, she gave her juice and snacks to Kemi outside the school wall. Kemi hesitated before taking them. "You don't have to," she said. "I want to," Muna replied. They began talking, little things at first. About books, about school, about how Kemi liked reading, even though she didn't own any books. Muna promised to bring her some. From across the street, Uncle Tayo saw it all. He smiled, chewing his orange slice slowly. "Children know how to show love better than grown-ups," he muttered. He opened his brown notebook again and scribbled, "Today, the daughter of the proud woman showed more honor than the mother."
There is still hope.
At home that evening, Kemi helped her mother cook ogbono soup. She pounded yam with small, strong hands while her little brother coughed softly in the corner. The ceiling leaked and the light bulb flickered, but the room was full of warmth. "Mummy," she said, "a girl from school gave me juice today." "That's nice," her mother replied. "You see, not everyone is unkind." "She's the rich woman's daughter," Kemi added. Her mother paused. "The same one who laughed?" Kemi nodded. "She's different. She said sorry." "Then she has a good heart," her mother said. Kemi looked out the window. The moon was small and pale, but even small moons light the night. The next morning, the school buzzed with news of a charity event. A big one, hosted by the governor's wife. It was meant to honor girls from low-income homes who had shown courage and excellence. Kemi didn't know that her school had nominated her quietly. Her teacher, Mr. Dapo, had written a heartfelt letter telling them about the cleaner girl who worked every morning, helped her family, and still came first in her class exams. The governor's wife was impressed. "She's the kind of girl we should celebrate," she said. Invitations were sent out. Rich women, socialites, school principals, and Madame Olana, of course. She smiled when she saw the gold envelope. "Another event to show off my new jewelry," she said, tossing it on her dresser. Muna glanced at the card. "Will Kemi be there?" she asked. "How would that cleaner girl get into a place like this?" Olana scoffed. But the truth was already moving. The wheels were turning. The story was getting ready to surprise her. The hall shimmered with golden curtains and soft lights. Red carpets lined the entrance. On both sides of the walkway, photographers clicked their cameras as rich women arrived in lace gowns and high heels. Inside, waiters moved quietly, placing bottles of water and sweet drinks on glass tables. The air smelled like vanilla and fresh flowers. Kemi stood behind a curtain, her hands shaking as she held her small speech card. She wore a borrowed green gown from her teacher's wife, her hair braided neatly into cornrows and her heart beating loud in her chest. She had never been in a place so grand, never seen so many lights, cameras, and important people, but her name was on the program and her story had brought her here. From the crowd, Madame Alana arrived late, as usual. She walked in, head held high, in a bright orange dress with shining jewelry. She greeted other women loudly, laughing and waving her fan. "This event better not be boring," she said, looking around. Muna sat beside her, quiet. She looked around, searching. She hoped, just maybe, Kemi would really be here. The host, a cheerful woman in a beautiful wrapper, stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we honor young girls who are changing lives with their strength, courage, and spirit." People clapped lightly. "Our next speaker is someone very special. She wakes up before sunrise to help her family. She sweeps the streets before going to school. She comes first in her class, and she never complains. Please welcome Miss Kemi Ayula." Gasps filled the hall. A few people clapped slowly, unsure. Olana frowned. "That name sounds familiar," she muttered. Kemi stepped out from behind the curtain. Her steps were slow but sure. Her eyes searched for her teacher in the crowd. She held her note card close to her chest, and then her eyes met Olana's. For a brief second, everything stopped. Olana's mouth dropped open. "That's the girl, the cleaner." Muna sat up straight and smiled. Kemi reached the microphone. She took a breath. "Good afternoon. My name is Kemi Ayula. I am a daughter, a student, a helper. I believe that even if life gives you little, you can still give your best." The crowd listened. Silent. I sweep, I read, I work. But more than that, I hope. For every girl like me who walks past big cars and big houses and feels invisible, I want you to know, you matter. Your life matters. People began to clap. Some stood, some wiped their eyes. Muna clapped loudest. The host returned to the stage. Thank you, Kemi. And now, we have someone special to share a short story about her. A man who watched her journey from the start. Please welcome Baba Teo. Gasps again, whispers. Olana's eyes widened. Isn't that the fruit seller? Uncle Teo stepped forward. He wore his best native cloth and held a small brown notebook. He didn't rush, he didn't smile, but he nodded gently to the crowd. My name is Tayo. Most know me as the Orange Man. But I am also a watcher, a writer. I've seen many things, but this girl, she is different. He opened his notebook. One morning, I saw her, covered in mud by a passing car. She didn't cry, she didn't shout. She picked up her broom and swept the road again. That same day, someone laughed at her, someone who thought the road belonged only to the rich. He paused, looked at Olana. But the road belongs to all of us. The shame is not in the mud, it is in how we treat each other. The crowd sat still, listening. And today, this girl stands not in rags, but in honor, not in silence, but in strength. He closed his book. The world watches, even when you think it doesn't. Olana sat frozen. For once, she had no words. Muna reached for her hand. Mummy, she whispered, maybe it's time to say sorry. Slowly, Olana stood. She began to clap. One hand, then both. Soft at first, then louder. Others joined. Kemi looked across the crowd and saw something that surprised her. Madam Olana, nodding. And for the first time, the mud didn't feel so heavy. The next morning, the air felt different. It wasn't the weather, it was something deeper. People who had watched the award event the night before were still talking. On WhatsApp groups, Facebook pages, and at market stalls, they shared the video of the girl in the green gown, the girl who swept streets and still stood tall on a golden stage. Kemi didn't know she had gone viral. She had woken up early, dressed in her faded yellow blouse and skirt, and picked up her broom, like always. She promised her teacher she would finish her last week of work before fully joining City Girls Secondary School. As she swept that morning, something unusual happened. The man who sold bread waved at her. Well done, Auntie Kemi, he said. A woman she didn't know handed her a meat pie. For your strength, she said. Kemi smiled, but she didn't fully understand why people were treating her differently. Meanwhile, in her luxury house across town, Madame Olana sat quietly at the dining table. Her phone screen glowed with notifications. Messages from old classmates, business partners, and even a senator's wife. Olana, is that the same girl you splashed? One message read. Wow, your daughter is so respectful, another one said. That fruit seller's words were powerful. You should apologize. Olana turned off the phone. She stood up and paced. It was just water. Why is everyone acting like I committed a crime? But deep inside, the guilt was growing. Muna came downstairs, dressed for school. Morning, Mummy. Morning, Olana said softly. They sat in silence. You were wrong, weren't you? Muna asked gently. Olana looked at her daughter. Yes, she said after a long pause. Yes, I was. Later that morning, Olana did something she hadn't done in years. She drove herself. She wore a simple wrapper and blouse, no makeup, no loud earrings, just a white box in her hands. People stared as her car pulled up beside the school gate. She stepped out slowly, heels clicking on the pavement. Kemi was sweeping. She froze when she saw Olana. Good morning, Olana said softly. Kemi stayed silent. I came to say sorry, truly sorry. What I did was wrong. She handed Kemi the box. Inside were new books, school shoes, a proper lunchbox, and a scholarship letter, signed by Olana herself. Kemi's eyes widened. She held the box gently. "Thank you," she whispered. Muna stepped out from the car too and walked over. "Hi, Kemi." Kemi smiled. "Hi, Muna." The two girls hugged. Across the street, Uncle Teo sat at his orange stall smiling. He watched as Olana bent slightly and spoke to Kemi again. "I will do better, that's a promise." Uncle Teo opened his notebook and wrote, "Today, pride stepped back, and something better took its place." That afternoon, the principal called an emergency assembly. He invited Kemi to speak briefly, along with Muna and Madam Olana. Kemi spoke first. Her voice shook at first but grew stronger. "I didn't expect to be noticed. I was just doing my part. But now I know your hard work will speak. Even when you can't." Muna shared her part. "I didn't splash the water, but I saw it happen. I knew it was wrong. I didn't speak up that day, but I will now." Then Madam Olana stepped forward. "When we ignore the pain of others, we become blind to our own mistakes. I was wrong. I judged someone because of her clothes, but her heart is stronger than most I've seen." The crowd clapped. Teachers nodded. Even the cleaner at the back wiped her eyes. After the event, many parents shook hands with Kemi. Some even offered support, books, uniforms, food. But Kemi didn't let it change her. She went home that evening, helped her mother cook, and read with her brother by lantern light. "Mummy," she said, "do you know something?" "What, my child?" "Sometimes the people who look down on you today might lift you tomorrow." Her mother smiled. "And sometimes they just need someone brave enough to show them the way." The sun rose slowly over Lagos, casting golden light over the rooftops and school buildings. There had been rain the night before, just enough to leave a sweet smell in the air and soft puddles on the roadside. But Kemi's heart was light, and her steps were proud. She wore a crisp new uniform, white blouse, navy blue skirt, and matching socks. Her school bag was brand new, packed with notebooks, pencils, and a small pink lunchbox. Her mother had ironed her clothes 3 times to make sure she looked perfect. Today was her first full day at City Girls Secondary School, a dream she hadn't even dared to dream a few months ago. "Remember who you are," her mother said as she hugged her goodbye. "You are not small, you are light." "Yes, Mummy." Kemi looked at her baby brother sleeping on the mat and whispered, "I'll make you proud." At school, students turned their heads as Kemi walked in. Some whispered, some smiled, some clapped. Teachers greeted her by name. The principal personally showed her to her new classroom. Her seat was by the window. From there, she could see a mango tree and part of the road where she used to sweep. She took a deep breath and pulled out her first textbook. "You may introduce yourself," the teacher said. Kemi stood. "My name is Kemi Ayula. I like reading. I want to become a doctor, and I believe kindness is stronger than pride." The class clapped. A girl at the back whispered, "She's the one in that video." Kemi smiled but focused on her lesson. Back at Harmony Preparatory, changes were still happening. Madam Olana had launched a school support program for girls from low-income homes. She donated books, uniforms, even paid exam fees. She no longer wore loud makeup to every event, nor did she shout at her driver. She greeted every cleaner by name. Muna had started a small library shelf at school in Kemi's name. Students could donate or borrow books freely. "This is how change starts," she told her mother, "small but real." Every Saturday, Kemi and Muna volunteered at a youth center run by the church. They taught girls how to read, helped with homework, and told stories of courage. One day, a shy girl asked Kemi, "Were you really a street sweeper?" "Yes," Kemi said. smiling, "And I'm proud of it." "But weren't you ashamed?" "Never. Work is not shameful. Pride without love is." The girl nodded slowly. Something changed in her eyes. On Sunday afternoon, Kemi walked down to the orange stall. Uncle Tayo was still there, peeling fruit and humming to himself. "Ah, my champion," he said as he saw her. "Good afternoon, sir. How's the new school?" "Better than my dreams." She handed him her first report card, straight A's. Uncle Tayo cleaned his glasses and looked at the cards slowly. "You are more than clean," he said. "You shine." He reached for his small brown notebook and wrote, "One girl, one broom, one splash, but in her a generation found hope." He closed the notebook. "Your story isn't over, Kemi. It's just beginning." The next week, Harmony School painted a new sign at the front gate. It read, "Respect, kindness, courage." Underneath, in smaller writing, "Inspired by the story of Kemi Ayula." Kemi walked by one morning and paused. She smiled, touched the sign gently, and continued on. The mud was gone, but the memory remained, not as pain, but as purpose. Never look down on anyone. The person you shame today might be the one who shines tomorrow. Kindness is not weakness, and pride is not power. Work with honor. Speak with truth, because someone is always watching. Did this story touch your heart? Then don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more African stories that teach, inspire, and uplift. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. And remember, it costs nothing to be kind. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.